everybody, welcome back to another video by Dissociative. This is Nin, and this video is going to be a little bit different than our normal ones. So we get a lot of requests, and I mean a lot of requests, we always have, to do a makeup tutorial. So I was thinking, alright, how can we bring you the content that you want to see from us and also keep it educational and based around DID, because that's what we're here for. That's what's important to us. So I decided, all right, let's make a makeup tutorial and have a voiceover where I ask questions to myself and other alters in our system. The questions that were asked were given to us by our patrons, and we're very excited to share the answers with you. But first of all, we have a sponsor for this video, so thank you so much, Function of Beauty, for sponsoring this one. First of all, what is Function of Beauty? Function of Beauty does custom hair care. Why might you need custom hair care? Everybody's hair is unique and different, and just like we tend to choose things that fit for us personally in other aspects of our life, we now do the same for our hair. When we went on our mental health break last year, we were in a very bad way, and we were actually losing large clumps of hair and ended up getting bald patches. When our hair started to grow back in, I thought, I don't want to risk damaging it any further. So what's the best way to look after my hair specifically? With Function of Beauty, you pick what hair you have and what you want in your product. So for example, our hair is very fine, but we have a lot of it. It's also quite dry, but we have a sensitive scalp. Function of Beauty takes care of all of that stuff. Function of Beauty has 0 GMOs, parabens, sulfates, or toxins, and it's vegan and 100% cruelty-free. Since we've been using it, our hair is so much softer. It's also a lot lighter, and it doesn't get greasy as quickly, but it feels moisturized. You can choose how strong you want the fragrance in your products to be, and also what fragrance you get. I really like strong smells, so I picked the strongest. It smells amazing, my hair smells amazing, and it just makes me very happy. If you would like to try out custom hair care, please check out Function of Beauty, and if you click the link in our description, then you'll get 20% off your first set. Thank you so much again, Function of Beauty, for sponsoring this video, and away we go. Can the inner world change? Yes. The inner world of some systems remains fairly stable, but for others, it's more changeable and reflects the mental state. Where there is a really common visible change that works in that way. Sometimes buildings even fall down. Rooms, towns, islands, and galaxies can appear and disappear. Some areas of the inner world may be inaccessible along with the alters who reside there. Some places may only be visible to certain alters. There can be fires and natural disasters. If it can be imagined, it can potentially happen, as long as it makes sense for the mind to visualize the experiences that it's processing in that way. Do you and the other alters consider yourself family? Depends on who you ask. Some of us have familial bonds, some of us are friends, some of us are acquaintances, polite colleagues, or like just don't get on at all. All our relationships are complex and fluid, sometimes tumultuous. The details of some of our relationships are so elaborate that like I wouldn't even know how to describe them, like with the relationship between me and Nin. As a whole, we're stuck together, for better or for worse. Does a diagnosis of DID or OSDD affect a system's ability to drive? Yes, it does. A diagnosis of any form of dissociative disorder should be reported to the Driving Regulation Authority of the country you reside in. For the UK, this is the DVLA. If you do not inform the DVLA about a medical condition that affects your driving and they find out later, you could face a fine of £1,000. Additionally, if you are in an accident as a result of your condition, you may be prosecuted. While DID and dissociative disorders are not listed on the government website to check this, it is important to note that dissociative disorders can cause dizziness, unclear vision, and difficulty concentrating. Some people also experience dissociative seizures and amnesia. PTSD is also closely correlated with DID and OSDD, as they are severe forms of the former when viewed on a scaling spectrum. These can all be dangerous when driving on the road. However, many systems with DID and OSDD drive safely on a regular basis and do so throughout their life. Insurance is more expensive, but as long as the system is able to drive safely and they meet the necessary requirements set by the regulating body, people with DID and OSDD are allowed to drive. The severity of any symptoms which are disruptive to driving will vary drastically from system to system. Often systems will have a few alters who are appointed drivers, and driving can become a positive trigger for them. Of course, even with extensive planning, this is not always fail-safe. Do you have a favourite alter? This would be like asking someone to announce who their favourite friend is in front of like all their watching friends. Alters aren't characters, we ain't roleplay, we don't get to choose how or what to be like. We respect each other as individuals and we appreciate each other's strengths and weaknesses that have allowed us to survive, basically. DID forms due to repeated childhood trauma, and the existence of each of us brings something uniquely important and necessary for the survival of the body and the mind. Every alter is equally important and valued. Is it normal to have some alters in a system who don't front or very rarely front? Yes, not all alters will front with the same regularity as each other. Some alters may stay inside. There is a specific category of alter called internal self-helpers, and they generally stay inside and help the system from within the mind. They have roles less suited to fronting or being in the body, and doing so may be unnecessary for them to assist the system effectively. Some alters may go dormant for a time. Dormancy is comparable to being in a coma in the external world, or a very, very deep sleep. In this case, you may not see or hear from them for months, years, or decades, and this is normal. After specific traumas, or if the system is required to be around certain people or indulge in activities that specific alters wish to avoid, then they may choose to stay inside when the body is in that environment, and other alters who are more able or suited to dealing with the situation may front more often. Sometimes alters do not have the choice whether to front or not, and may have to deal with situations that they are ill-suited to coping with regardless. These situations can change, and so will the amount of time alters spend fronting, depending on your health, the people who surround you, required engagement in specific activities, and the mental states of both the host and the alters. What would you suggest as a first message when reaching out to your system if you suspect you have DID or OSDD? I would say, first of all, introduce yourself, say what you know, give them like a reassurance and a direction of how and where they should respond to you. At the end of the day, it's up to them whether they accept that or not, but just saying like, look, I know you're there. I know that your priority is safety. I know that, you know, you might feel a certain way about me, but now that I know you're here, I'd like to have a relationship with you. I'd like to actually be able to talk to you and, you know, get to know you, figure out what you want. Like, how can I help you? Ask how you can help them. You know, is there anything that you can do to make their life easier? Is there anyone that you don't want to speak to or something like that? If you have any problems, let me know, that sort of thing. And just say that you understand that it might be scary and that you understand that you don't understand. Don't try and speak as though you know everything just because you've done a lot of research, because like actually existing as an alter, it's not really something that can be understood just through like describing and research and stuff like that. So be gentle and don't get discouraged if you don't hear back, because I mean it could take a while. Just make sure that you know that when you're writing it out, you've definitely put something in there about I understand you're trying to do what you think is best, and I appreciate that, but I'd like to work with you and not against you. If you had a chance to live without DID, would you take it? Or have you grown attached to the system and would not want to leave it behind? That's a really big question. And it's not the first time we've heard that question either. If I had the chance to live without DID, I wouldn't be myself. If I were given a magic pill where I could live without DID, I wouldn't suddenly just be Nin and no other alters, because my mind is separated. I wouldn't be Nin. If there were no DID, then I would have all my memories. I would have a completely coalesced personality, like somebody without DID or OSDD. That means that I would remember all the past experiences that I've had, both bad and good, and that would make me a different person. Like suddenly learning something really massive about yourself makes you change. It makes you a different person, and that's how integration works. If, for example, I integrated or no longer had DID through some kind of magic pill or something like that, I wouldn't be myself. And then there are things to think about with that, because I really don't want to know most of the time what happened to me. I don't want to know about all of the trauma. I know enough. That's hard enough. When I think about having all those memories and having to live with it alone, I wouldn't be able to handle that myself as Nin. But if I didn't have DID, not only would those things never have happened, but I would have all the strength of all my other alters. Jade's way with words, Kyle's stubbornness, and Nadia's ability to bounce back. So would it be easier for me to deal with it like that? But there would be nothing to deal with, because if those things had happened, I would have developed DID, because they did, and I did. So it's a very complicated question. I don't know what it's like not to have DID. If I could get rid of the amnesia interfering in daily life, if I could just live normally, not have to worry about not being allowed my rights like access to education and things like that, that would be fantastic. Of course I would choose that. Of course I would choose not to be considered crazy, not to be second guessed, not to be considered dangerous, to be taken seriously when I have a medical issue, to be able to study where I want, to have the jobs that I want, to not be in pain all the time, to not have PTSD, CPTSD, horrifying flashbacks, and the burden of that kind of knowledge. If I could have all my memory intact and know what I did through the whole day, isn't that as close to a normal life as anyone can get? But I wouldn't be me. I don't know what it would be like to have a mind that's completely silent. I don't know what it would be like to deal with a life where I can't ask someone in my own head to step in or to help. I've lived a life like that before I knew I had DID, but they were still stepping in to help. I could still hear them, I just didn't know what it was, so I disregarded it. My mind was like two magnets. It pushed away from me getting close to realizing that my memory was missing. My mind rejected that. It wouldn't let me close. I couldn't even think about it. My brain wouldn't go there. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't happening. That is a very big question. It's more than just, would you rather live a life where you can make all your own decisions because you're the only one in the body? It's also, who would you be? How would you deal with life? You would have a different life. If I didn't have the past I had, then my life would be different. DissociaDID wouldn't exist. It's a very, very big question, and there's a lot of things to consider. DID is what gave me the life I have. DID is what allowed me to survive. Yes, there are things about DID which are horrifying and I wouldn't wish on anybody, but it's also who I am. There are ways that DID has adapted to be a brilliant coping mechanism. I can't say one way or another, but working on acceptance of having DID is something that I've had to deal with for a very long time now, whether I knew it or not. Even if it would be easier, and it would be easier, I don't think I would want to be anything different. I want to show that people with DID can succeed, that they can live the life that they want to, that we aren't monsters, that there's nothing to be ashamed of, and that wishing things were different isn't going to make anything better. I hope that goes some way to answering your questions.